Hi, so today we will talk about how to graph quadratic function. Okay, so in order to graph quadratic function, we need to find three things. One is the vertex. X-intercept. And the Y-intercept. Okay, so what does a quadratic function look like? A quadratic function is going to look like a parabola, which is a smooth curve like a U shape. Either opens up or opens down. Like this. Maybe I should draw a better one. Okay, so what is X-intercept? So X-intercept, Y-intercept is the parabola intercept with the x-axis or y-axis. So look at the parabola. This point, the intercept with the x-intercept. So these are called x-intercept when the parabola intercept with x-intercept is called x-axis is called x-intercept. And then when the parabola intercept with the y-axis is called y-intercept. Okay, so look at the second graph. Sometimes the x-intercept and y-intercept, they can be the same point, which is happen to be at the origin, 0, 0. Okay, actually sometimes, so for y-intercept, each graph, they will have at least one y-intercept, at least one. One y-intercept. But for x-intercept, sometimes you will have two x-intercepts, sometimes you will have one x-intercept, sometimes you don't have any x-intercept. Here. So look. So this case is what? Has two x-intercept. This one only have one x-intercept, which is on the x-axis. And this one have 0 x-intercepts. Okay. So we will discuss about that later. This has how many intercepts determined by what? Okay, so now let's look back. As you can see, the graph either opens up or opens down, right? So that determined by the leading coefficient A. Okay, so what's leading coefficient? We have, this is the standard form of quadratic function, right? This is the quadratic term. This one is the linear term. This one is the constant term. Okay, so if A here, if A is greater than 0, the function, the graph, opens up. Right? If it opens up, that means you will have a minimum, right? If A is less than 0, then the graph opens down. If the graph opens down, that means you will have a maximum point. So now let's see, how do we find X-intercept, Y-intercept, and the vertex? So X-intercept, let's do Y-intercept first. Y-intercept is what? If you look at the Y-intercept that we had in the previous graph, Y-intercept is in here. What do they have in common? They're all on Y-intercept, right? So that means the X coordinate equals to 0. And now, similarly, let's look at X-intercept. For X-intercept, what do they have in common? Right, their Y equals to 0. Okay, so for example, if I give you a function, Y equals to X squared plus 4X plus 3. And I want you to find the X-intercept and the Y-intercept. You know what would be helpful? Oh no, I'm sorry. So X equals to 0, then we will have our Y-intercept, right? So let's do the Y-intercept first. You want to set X equals to 0. That means you want to substitute X equals to 0 into the function. So Y is equals to 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 3. Y is equal to 3. Remember, Y-intercept is a point. It's not a line. So you want to write into a point form, which is 0 and 3. Now let's work on our X-intercept. X-intercept is when Y equals to 0, right? So that means X squared plus 4X plus 3 equals to 0. Now we can solve this. How many ways that we can solve it? So we can either graph it. Oh no, sorry, not graph it. We can either factor it, use quadratic function, quadratic formula, or complete the square. In this case, it will be easier to factor, right? So I have X plus 3 times X plus 1, AC method. By the zero root product, we know that X either equals to -3 and X equals to -1. So the point should be 0, oh no, not 0, -3, 0, and then -1, 0. So these two, this one is our Y-intercept, and this one is our X-intercept. Okay, now how do we find vertex? So first of all, we need to know what is vertex. So vertex is the maximum or the minimum of the quadratic graph, okay? So the vertex is the line of symmetry intercept with the graph. So this is the line of symmetry. Or sometimes they call it axis of symmetry. So how do we find the axis of symmetry? Well, the axis of symmetry is x equals to -b over 2a. Okay, that's how we find the x coordinate of the vertex. Okay, so I'll write it here. The vertex is, we want to let x equals to -b over 2a. That's the line of symmetry to find x. So how do we find y? So the y coordinate, since the y coordinate is also on the graph, so what you want to do is you want to substitute y, you want to substitute x into the function to find y. So that means our y equals to -b over 2a squared. Oh, I should put a plus, let me be more specific. Okay. So y equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So that you want to substitute x equals to negative b over 2a into the quadratic equation. So whatever you get, that's the y coordinate. So let's use the same example, which is y equals to x squared plus 4x plus 3. The first step is you want to identify what's a, b, c. A is equals to 1, b equals to 4, c equals to 3, right? So by the equation of 9 of symmetry, we know that x equals to negative b over 2a. So I have b equals to 4, a equals to 1, so this is equals to 2a. And then y is you want to substitute x equals to negative 2 into the equation. So the negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 at 3. This is equals to 4 minus 8 plus 3, which is negative 1. So the vertex should be negative 2 and 1. Okay, now we have all the information that we need. We have a y-intercept, we have an x-intercept, we have a vertex. Now we can plug in the points together to draw the graph. Oops, oh, it's fine. So we have a vertex negative 2 and 1. And then we have a y-intercept 0 and 3. 0 and 3. That's y-intercept. And then we have x-intercept negative 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. So these two is your, oh, this is negative 1, sorry. I know I did something wrong. Okay, so this vertex should be negative 1 instead of positive 1, negative 2 and negative 1 in here. Okay, so now let's look at A. A is equals to 1, which is greater than 0. So from here, we know that the function is going to opens up. Okay, so now we connect all the points together. So this is our quadratic graph of the function y equals to x squared plus 4x plus 3. Let's do another example. What about y equals to negative 3x squared plus 12x minus 9? The first step is I would like to identify A, B, C. A equals to negative 3, B equals to 12, C equals to negative 9. Be careful about the sign. This is not just 9, it should be negative 9, and A should be negative 3. Okay, and then if this is opens up or down, well, since A is equal to negative 3, so our A is less than 0, it's a negative number, we know that the graph is what? The graph opens down, good. Okay, so the next is we want to find the y-intercept. So y-intercept is when x equals to 0. If you don't remember which when is equals to 0, what you can do is you can draw some random graph on your scratch paper. And then when you intercept with the point, you know that, hey, this is on x, that means the y coordinate equals to 0. Okay, and then similar to the y-axis, you know that this is on the s-axis. So the x-coordinate of this point equals to 0. Okay, so we have x equals to 0. So y equals to -3, 0 squared plus 12 times 0 minus 9. Because equals to -9. So y-intercept is 0, -9. Okay, now x-intercept. X-intercept is when y equals to 0. So I have the function y 0 equals to -3x squared plus 12x minus 9. Again, we can solve it by factor, complete square, or a quadratic formula. So how do we factor this? First of all, we factor out the common factor, which is -3. So I have 0 equals to -3x squared minus, because you factor out the negative sign, so here should be a negative for the positive 12x. 4x and then plus 3. And then you divide by -3 on both sides, you will have 0 equals to x squared minus 4x plus 3. So use AC method. We have either x minus 3 times x minus 1 equals to 0. So x equals to 3 and x equals to 1. So x-intercept should be 3, 0, and 1, 0. Okay, the last step is the vertex. So the vertex is the x-coordinate equals to the line of symmetry, which is negative b over 2a. So b equals to 12. A equals to 2 times -3. Don't forget the negative. So now we have two negative signs. So that means the result is going to be a positive number. So 12 divided by 6 equals to 2. And then the y-coordinate is you substitute the x-coordinate into the equation. We will end up to have what? 3. So your vertex should be 2 and 3. Now we mark all the points. And this opens down on a graph. So I have vertex. Yes, here. So we have 2, 3 for one of the vertex. X-intercept is 3, 0, 1, 0. Y-intercept is -9. Which is here, and we know that the graph opens down, right? So it would be an open down parabola. So the graph should look like this one. Okay. So that's it for today.